heard him. Is that what this is all about?
No, we want to have a serious discussion. We got Turing, we have Valiant, we have the EPA there. We're trying to have a discussion about the pricing of drugs, and we hope that he will actually testify.
Well, you know, when he raised that drug, HIV drug, by 5,000%, you know, the whole world turned on him. I mean, you know, really, as he really looked like a profiteer. I want to get your take on this, because on the one hand, I know you don't want to control markets, right? You believe in free markets. On the other hand, what? Look at these numbers. The wholesale price for 30 of the top-selling U.S. drugs increased 76% between 2010 and 2014, which represents 8 times general inflation. What do you do about it?
Well, I think most of my questions are actually going to go to the FDA, and my question is for them is, look, basic economics, if you're going to have a rapid rise in price, in this case with Turing, when a drug goes from less than $20 to more than $700, that invites competition. But when you have more than 3,000 drugs in the backlog at the FDA, what is it that they're doing to accelerate that? And I do want to ask Mr. Shkreli and some of the others that will be testifying about these priority review vouchers that you're able to go in and get for these drugs that we're trying to develop for people that are affected by, you know, less than 2,000 Americans a year. But, you know, these companies are acquiring these, turning them around in the market and selling them for literally hundreds of millions of dollars just so a company can get a 4-month jump start. And so that begs a lot of questions, and I think Turing and Valiant are the right companies to get their perspective if we're going to have a balanced hearing.
Yeah, so on the one hand, we need the FDA to work better because they need to be able to get drugs out so the competitive process continues. Because the truth is, after Shkreli raised the drug by 5,000%, all the way up to $750 a pill, another smaller company comes out and says, guess what? We're going to offer a generic for $1 a pill.
Yeah, they really could. Look, this is a drug that's been out there for decades, but when you have people that have to take this pill or they're going to die, if you're in the marketplace and you see it rise more than to $700, you as an entrepreneur might say, hey, I'm going to get into that market. There's compounding pharmacies. There are other things. That's why we're trying to have a serious discussion and not just have a circus, as he suggests.
Yeah, I know. I think it's just a really important discussion, and I know that America appreciates you taking this up. But let me ask you this. How damaging is it for this guy to look so, you know, arrogant? And I mean, is that why you're seeing sort of a pile-on and people want to make sure that, you know, they get him on anything, like the securities fraud charges that he's facing?
No, look, I know he's under indictment. I don't have any plans to even ask him about that. And obviously, he's not even going to be able to talk about that. But we're going to ask him a series of questions that I mean, he has the right to plead the Fifth. But I don't know that he's necessarily done anything illegally. But I want to give him a chance to do that. If we're going to have a broad discussion about the pricing of drugs, I think this is the right way to do it. I
think he really wants to have that discussion with you, but he said he's going to take the Fifth, and his lawyer said he's not saying a word.
Well, again, until he's actually here, because he said the whole gambit. He said he can't wait to come to Congress. He would school us. He would do all these negative things about us. We'll ask him the questions and see if he wants to plead the Fifth or if he'll actually answer a serious question. And he wants to be a player. So let's have him come to Congress and stand up for himself and tell the world why he thinks what he did is right. Because I've heard him say he didn't raise the price high enough.
Exactly. We want to get to my panel here because we've got questions on other issues. But let me ask you this. If we were to see, for example, an Alzheimer's drug on the market, right, a cure for Alzheimer's, we know that if you live to the age of 85, 1 in 2 people will get Alzheimer's. Can you actually say, you know, it's going to be capped at a certain price? I mean, there's no Alzheimer's drug on the market. If an Alzheimer's drug comes on the market, you know, how can the government say a company that created it is not going to be able to charge whatever they can charge?
Well, look, there's going to be a strong profit motive, but what I don't want are government price controls.
Exactly.
That's the thing that I want to avoid. And so how do you get that competition? And again, that's where the focus is very quickly, I think, going to go back to the FDA and how they go through this approval process. Because right now, Maria, we got this huge backlog of more than 3,000 drugs ready to come on the marketplace. I think that would improve the quality of people's lives and help drive down prices.
It's a great point. Let me bring in Morgan Ortagus, Congressman. Go ahead, Morgan.
Congressman, I love watching you on the Hill because you never shy away from any controversy. Whether it's Fast and Furious, you're ready to take people on. Speaking of that, in the Flint water crisis, you said that you were going to have U.S. Marshals to hunt down the emergency manager. Where are you on that? Did the Marshals find him?
Well, look, last week we informed Mr. Early, who was the emergency manager, we were having this hearing. It wasn't until the night before or the day before that he informed us that, A, he wouldn't be here, which is wrong, so we said we'd issue a subpoena. Then he said he would refuse to get that subpoena. So, you know what? When you get an invite to the United States Congress, to the Oversight and Government Reform Committee, it's not optional. And if I have to issue a subpoena, which I did, and we have to physically serve that and hunt him down, then we will do that. So we've given a second subpoena to the marshals, and they're going to go find him and serve him personally. He's not going to just deny it electronically. That's the way most people actually accept these things. I
mean, the Flint story is so horrible, Congressman. How did it happen? How did all this lead get into the water in Flint?
We had a very good hearing, and what is just, it's totally avoidable. You have 100,000 people that were poisoned by their government because they made this switch, which they shouldn't have done, and then when they realized there was a problem, what's even more infuriating is they covered it up.
Yeah.
And there's culpability at the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality and at the FDA, EPA, I keep changing the acronyms, but at the EPA. And that's what's, the EPA knew about this starting in February of 2015. It wasn't until January of 2016 that they actually did an official notice. How does that happen? How do they sit on this for a year before they let the public know?
Yeah, and how come the EPA keeps coming out with more regulations and more regulations on top of regulations?
They want to control all the water in the United States, and they can't take care of this. And we had the problem in Colorado. We've had other problems. They want to control every puddle in the country, and yet when they know there's a problem, they cover it up. They don't inform the public, and people had lead poisoning for a year, 100,000 of our fellow Americans.
Unbelievable.
It's just not right.
Congressman, here's Jolynn Kent.
Congressman, I know you're planning on a probe of federal emails and record-keeping purposes, but Speaker Ryan is telling you to not make it too political. Is that because you've endorsed Senator Rubio?
No, look, the Oversight and Government Reform Committee has jurisdiction on the Federal Records Act. We have jurisdiction on the FOIA. The Speaker has never said, don't do your job. And so when I did this interview with Politico, I said, of course we're going to do our job. You know, Secretary Clinton has ensnarled herself in this email scandal. That wasn't my doing. It wasn't Republicans. She did it to herself. But of course we're going to do our job and look at compliance with Federal Records Act and FOIA. But that doesn't mean we're targeting her in any way, shape, or form.
Does that mean you don't think the FBI and DOJ can do their job in this investigation, though?
Oh, I have every confidence in Director Comey. By every news report, they're actually doing a very thorough job. I don't want to do anything to impede that investigation, but we have problems at the Department of Defense, at the State Department, at other agencies. We heard testimony yesterday that the EPA is not filling, EPA is not fulfilling its responsibility under FOIA. The researcher has one outstanding FOIA that's been there for 9 years.
Yeah.
So this is the way the public gets the information.
Congressman, then there's the IRS, right? More problems there. Everyone's trying to figure out, you know, if it's going to impact their tax returns. Can you give us any clue into what's going on at the IRS?
I mean, I read the news story yesterday that they are unable to take, in certain instances, electronic filing. That, to me, my initial gut reaction is that may be a hack. You just don't have systems collapse and people can't use the systems online. You know, it's not like they run out of batteries or something. It really does smell like a hack. I have zero confidence, zero, in the IRS Commissioner John Koskinen. He was in there to clean that thing up, make sure there was no political targeting, and I have no confidence that they've solved those problems.